There's a type of person who can walk into a room full of smiling faces and instantly know that something is wrong. Not guess. No. They feel the tension in the air like a change in temperature. And the reason they can do that has nothing to do with talent, and everything to do with what they survived. If you're someone who walks into a room and immediately feels the emotional temperature, who picks up tension in a posture shift, a half-second micro expression, a silence that lasts one beat too long, this video is about you. Not the loud empaths, not the self-proclaimed healers, the quiet ones, the ones who see everything and say almost nothing. Welcome. You're about to understand yourself in a way no one ever explained to you before. Society has a word for people like you, several actually. Oversensitive. Too much. Always overthinking. And you've probably heard those labels so many times that part of you started believing them. But here's what developmental psychology actually says about you. You're not oversensitive. You're neurologically sharpened. Psychologists have started using the term traumatic intelligence to describe a specific set of cognitive abilities that emerge in people who grew up in unpredictable or emotionally volatile environments. Basically, your brain, specifically your amygdala and prefrontal cortex, got wired early to detect subtle emotional signals that most people's brains simply never register. And it wasn't optional. Your nervous system didn't build this capacity because you read the right self-help book or practiced meditation for a decade. It built it because at some point, reading the room correctly was a matter of emotional or even physical survival. You became fluent in a language that most people don't even know exists, the language of what's not being said. And there's one particular ability this wiring produces that even most psychologists don't talk about openly. But it explains almost everything about how you move through the world. We'll get there. So when someone tells you you're reading too much into things, no. You're reading exactly as much as your brain was designed to. The difference is their brain never had to. But that's just the surface, because what traumatic intelligence actually does to your decision making, your relationships, and your sense of self, that's where this gets really fascinating. Here's something wild. Research on early adversity shows that children raised in emotionally volatile environments develop what neuroscientists call enhanced perceptual sensitivity. Their brains literally allocate more processing power to reading facial expressions, vocal tone, and body language. Studies at the University of Wisconsin found that adults who experienced childhood unpredictability could identify emotional microexpressions significantly faster than their peers who grew up in stable homes. Think about that for a second. Your brain isn't just different, it's measurably quicker at processing emotional data than the average person's. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. And this is the part most feel-good videos on this topic conveniently skip. That same heightened sensitivity, it doesn't come with an off switch. You don't just read danger accurately, you also read danger where there isn't any. Cognitive psychologists call this threat generalization. Your brain learned to cast a wide net because missing a real threat once was far worse than 100 false alarms. And here's the kicker. That means some of the anxiety you carry isn't a flaw in your system. It's your system working exactly as it was designed, just running in an environment that no longer requires that level of surveillance. This is what separates traumatic intelligence from regular emotional intelligence. It's not just perception, it's perception forged under pressure, calibrated by stakes most people never had to face. And that distinction matters more than you think. But here's what's fascinating. This wiring doesn't just affect how you read people, it completely reshapes how you handle pressure. Researchers describe something called stress inoculation, the idea that repeated early exposure to high-stakes situations actually recalibrates your nervous system's stress response. So while most people freeze or spiral when things fall apart around them, you go quiet. Strategic, almost unnervingly calm. Not because you don't feel the weight of it, because your brain has processed environments like that so many times that it built an internal protocol for exactly this kind of moment. And let's be honest about something. You've noticed this pattern in yourself. When a crisis hits, people turn to you, not because you volunteered, not because you raised your hand, because something about your composure signals that you've navigated this terrain before. They might not know why they trust you in that moment, but you do. And that's the ability I mentioned earlier, the one most people never name directly. It's not just empathy, it's not just keen observation. It's the capacity to think with clarity inside chaos, to stay functional and deliberate when everyone around you is reacting on pure emotion. That's what traumatic intelligence actually gives you at its core. And most people never develop it because their nervous system was never forced to build it. Now picture this. It's 2 in the morning. The house is completely still. Everyone's asleep. And your mind is running. Replaying a conversation from 6 hours ago, analyzing someone's specific word choice, wondering if that pause before their answer meant something they didn't say out loud. You're not spiraling, you're not obsessing. You're doing exactly what your brain was trained to do: process, decode, protect. But there's another layer to this. That depth of analysis, it extends beyond people. You think about systems, patterns, the mechanics behind why things happen the way they do. You've probably been told you're too intense or that you overthink everything. But what's actually happening is that your mind processes at a depth that most people around you simply aren't operating at. It's not overthinking, it's thorough thinking. And the world wasn't built for people who operate at that frequency. But here's something that sounds contradictory, and it might challenge what you believe about yourself. That analytical depth you're proud of, it can also become the very thing that keeps you trapped. The line between genuine insight and chronic hypervigilance is far thinner than most people realize. And sometimes the person who sees everything is also the person who can never fully rest. And the next part is what explains why people with traumatic intelligence often feel profoundly alone, even in rooms full of people who genuinely care about them. But some of you didn't develop this perceptiveness as a gift. You developed it as armor. And armor, no matter how beautifully constructed, is still something you built because you expected to be hurt. The self-reliance that impresses everyone around you, sometimes it's not independence, it's the quiet inability to trust that anyone will actually show up when it matters. The emotional depth that moves you to tears at a piece of music or a stranger's unexpected kindness. Sometimes it's not sensitivity. It's a nervous system that never fully learned what safe enough to relax actually feels like. So it's worth asking yourself with real honesty. Do you analyze people because it genuinely enriches your understanding of the world, or because you still can't stop scanning for the next threat? Because one of those is wisdom. The other is a wounded still running his show. But here's what matters most. Post-traumatic growth research, studied extensively by psychologists Tedeschi and Calhoun, consistently shows something remarkable. The people who navigate the hardest early environments are often the same ones who develop the deepest clarity about what actually matters in life. Not surface-level positivity, not motivational poster wisdom, real, earned, bone-deep understanding that only comes from having looked closely at pain and refused to let it be the final word. You feel things at a frequency most people don't have access to. You carry a philosophical weight about meaning and purpose that didn't come from a TED Talk. It came from lived experience that demanded you grow up faster and think deeper than anyone around you. And this is where the contradiction finally resolves. Traumatic intelligence isn't something to celebrate at the expense of acknowledging the difficulty that built it. And it isn't something to dismiss as just damage. It's both. It's the architecture of a mind that had to grow faster than it should have, and did so with remarkable precision. You're not broken because you feel everything so deeply. You're not paranoid because you notice what others miss. You're running cognitive software that most people don't even know exists. And the fact that it was installed by pain doesn't make it any less extraordinary.